one of the more than 200 schoolgirls kidnapped by Boko Haram in 2014 has been found alive in northeast Nigeria. We'll have a live update. From promoting democracy to uplifting women, a leading human rights activist shares her goals for Nigeria. And how social media helped launch Nollywood's most unexpected new star. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin tonight in Nigeria, where finally there is some good news surrounding at least one of the missing Chibok schoolgirls. Nigerian soldiers have found one of the girls kidnapped by Boko Haram militants in the country's northeast more than 2 years ago. Amina Ali Keke is the first of the 219 Chibok girls to be freed since the mass abduction that grabbed worldwide attention following their seizure on April the 14th, 2014. Nkeke's uncle, Yakubu Nkeke, told the Associated Press that she was found Tuesday wandering in the forest and brought to Chibok so her identity could be verified. Lawan Zena, secretary of an association of parents of the missing girls, told Reuters that Amina Ali was found near the Sambisa forest, close to the border with Cameroon, and she was carrying a baby. The sex of the child was not known. The kidnapping of the Chibok girls unleashed a wave of international outrage and protest from the parents who said Nigeria wasn't doing enough to bring the girls home. Boko Haram militants have killed an estimated 15,000 people and kidnapped hundreds of men, women and children in their near 6-year campaign to carve out an Islamic caliphate in northeastern Nigeria. For more perspective on this developing story, Blessing Tuno of Channels TV joins me by phone from Borno State, Nigeria. Good evening, Blessing.
Good evening.
Now, first, just give us some clarity here. How did this lady or this girl, how was she found? We have had some kind of contradicting information there.
Thank you. This morning we got talking with one of the local vigilantes that took part in the rescue of the women from the Sambisa forest. You know, the army recently launched an operation crackdown in the Sambisa forest to rid the hideout, of the Boko Haram insurgents. Now the operations led to the insurgents fleeing from some of their enclaves in the Sambisa. And Amina was found with some women in a village called Bali within the Sambisa forest. They were wandering and they were obviously lost. And then the civilian vigilante and the hunters, they found Amina with other women. And one of the hunters who we spoke to earlier, Mr. Fagu, told us that he identified Amina because he's also from Chibok. And upon interrogation, she confirmed she was the one, and she was brought and handed over to the military battalion in Damboa, who took her to Chibok, to her village, where they met her mom, and her identity was verified.
Now, what you're saying here is that she wasn't rescued and delivered by the military, but this girl apparently might have escaped, just somehow managed to get away from Boko Haram.
Yes. What actually happened was the military, on offensive operation in the Sambisa, when they launched their operations, the fleeing Boko Haram had to abandon the women, and which they fled. So that was how she was found by the civilian JTF.
Very quickly, is this? What are the parents saying? Do they feel like this gives them hope for the others who are missing?
Yes. Earlier, I also spoke with one of the parents who is an official, the parents of Chibok girls. He's in the fore of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. And he sounded really hopeful that the return of Amina will be a lead to the discovery of where the other girls are.
Okay. Blessing, thank you very much. That's Blessing Tuno of Channels TV reporting from Borno State in Nigeria. Well, for further insight, Ali Mustafa, the managing editor of VOA's House of Service, joins me in the studio now. Ali, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Vincent.
This is some really uplifting news, right?
It sure is. A couple of things. Listening to the conversation you just had with the young journalist, first of all, we know the gender of the baby. It was a male child, said to be about 5 months old. The person who actually found Amina, like she rightly pointed out, is from Chibok itself. His name is Apagua, and he's known to the parents, to the family. So it was easy for that, for her to be united with her family. And also she said some three very interesting things. She said all the girls that were kidnapped are in Sambisa forest.
So that at least this proves that they're there.
Yeah, they are there.
Yeah.
She also said 6 of them are dead. And then she said all of them have been married, interestingly, not to Boko Haram elements, but to men kidnapped by Boko Haram.
So these men are kidnapped, kept in Sambisa forest,
yes,
but they're given these girls to marry.
They are, Boko Haram kidnaps a lot of people, men, women, kids. And so now they've been marrying, until now they've been marrying the girls. But I guess the girls now outnumber the number of available men within the Boko Haram, whatever. So now they're marrying them off to other men that they... In fact, the guy who I married was from Mubi in Adamawa State, and he also was kidnapped and forced. This time she wasn't the one being forced. He was the one who was forced to marry her.
To marry her. So what are you hearing from the parents and the other people you spoke to on the ground?
Well, in the conversation we just had, there's a lot of happiness in the village, obviously. The mother was crying, and people are very joyous about this. But I think the key thing is we talked to the Nigerian military, for the General Rabi Abubakar is the spokesman for the military, and he said they are trying to verify the identity of the girl. But he also said a lot of females have escaped, and they are trying to verify all those.
We'll continue following this story. Thanks a lot, Aliyu, for joining us today. Well, Aliyu Mustafa is the managing editor of UA's Hausa service. Staying in Nigeria now, defying a court ban, hundreds of union activists launched a general strike on Wednesday and marched through the streets of Lagos in protests at a planned hefty increase in fuel prices. Some 200 strikers faced armed police as they marched through Lagos, where some banks and many shops stayed open for business. Now the government hopes lifting costly fuel subsidies causing prices to rise up by 2/3 of the pumps will help alleviate the worst crisis in decades in Africa's biggest economy. A wave of strikes ensured the last time Nigeria tried to introduce a similar measure in 2012, and authorities eventually reinstated some subsidies. Well, to tell us more about the strike, we're joined on the phone by Loretta Chiogo with Channels Television in Lagos. Good evening, Loretta.
Good evening.
Now, first there was actually a court order against this strike, but it went on nevertheless. How was it today? Was it a successful strike?
Well, the Nigerian Labour Congress shunned the court order and went on with the strike. Compliance to the strike by NLC varies in different states anyway. In the southwest and southeast and some parts of the north, the strike, may be said to be effective because government workers were all involved in the peaceful rally and not in their offices. And here in Lagos, where I am, the protest rally went on, but not really enough to disrupt business activities, just as you've said. It wasn't really enough to disrupt business activities like it happened in 2012 when the NLC and the Trade Union Congress called a strike and also a protest, and that was very effective in 2012, but not now. And what we could see was that there were lots of traffic gridlock around major roads in the state and also around the airport access, but that was not enough to disrupt any business activity at all.
Loretta, why was this not as big as the previous strike in Lagos and in Nigeria?
Well, getting the feelers from people, from Nigerians especially, is that people are just fed up of strikes or protests. They want to believe in the APC government that with the increment in fuel price, there could be a better condition for the people. The people are just, I think they are just tired of hardship. The people have complained of going back and forth in protests and strikes without having any change in the economy. And so this time around, they're saying, look, we're not going to support the NLC. We're not supporting any labor unions going for this strike. All we want, which is fuel. And back here in Nigeria, the major challenge is that without fuel in Nigeria, because of the general blackouts that we have, power problems, people depend on this fuel to power their homes, to power their businesses. And so people are saying, if government is saying we no longer want to pay 600 billion annually as fuel subsidy, we want to stop hardship, and so we're not interested in protest.
Okay, Loretta, thank you very much. We do appreciate the update there. Well, thanks to Loretta Chogor with Channels Television in Lagos. Now, Libyan military forces say they have recaptured one of the main checkpoints south of the city of Misrata from Islamic State, reversing some of the gains the militant group made earlier this month. 7 members of the armed forces were killed and 19 were wounded, including 3 who died in a mine explosion as they took control of the checkpoint of Abu Ghraib. Islamic State fighters had overrun the Abu Ghraib checkpoint town and several nearby villages after carrying out coordinated suicide bomb attacks on May the 5th. Keith Ellison, the first Muslim to be elected to the U.S. Congress, says ISIS is a vile organization.
Is fundamentally they are liars, they're rapists, they are in fact rapists, and they torture people. In Islam, it's prohibited to mutilate corpses. They do this. They burn people gratuitously. And nothing they do is supportable in Islamic tradition or in the Quran.
Well, much of Africa's leadership was in Rome on Wednesday for the first Italy-Africa ministerial conference. More than 40 foreign ministers took part in the meeting, which discussed Libya, extremism and the migration crisis. Moussa Faki Mahamat, president of the African Union Council, urged more to be done to help increase security in Libya, the departure point for many of the migrant boats. He warned that Islamic State membership in Libya was on the rise. Italy's President Sergio Mattarella insisted the focus on of the response to the worst migration crisis in Europe since World War II must be the lives and safety of migrants. Now, for more on the conference, reporter Josephine McKenna joins us live via Skype from Rome. Now, Josephine, first tell us really, what did this conference achieve? There were quite a number of things on the table.
Well, there was a lot of talk about immigration and building economic links and friendship between Italy and African countries. There were members of around 40 countries represented, as well as, of course, the Italian President Sergio Mattarella and the Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi. As you said earlier, President Mattarella wanted to stress the relations, the close relations between the African countries and Italy, saying no to walls and barriers, while the Prime Minister, Mr. Renzi, wanted to stress that Africa was an opportunity and not a threat. And that is also part of his compact. He's made a proposal to the European Union to put more money, put more financial incentives and investment into African countries to try and help them, to try and build the economies, and to try and discourage Africans from making that perilous journey across the Mediterranean and coming to Europe.
Now, Josephine, you know, some of these things are known. They've been discussed many times on many forums. Was there any specific thing that was kind of suggested in a concrete fashion in how to really resolve some of these problems?
Perhaps that's what was missing from the end of today. It was only a one-day meeting, so perhaps it's a little bit ambitious to assume that there would be a dramatic conclusion. But it was an opportunity for the parties to meet to discuss issues like climate change, terrorism and immigration, which is, of course, a big issue for Italy at the moment.
Now, very quickly, any monies pledged specifically, like a number, in dealing with some of these issues?
Well, Matteo Renzi, the Italian Prime Minister, has asked the European Union for more financial aid to go to African countries. They're still talking about how that could possibly be worked out and financed. But in the meantime, Prime Minister Renzi wanted to emphasise that there's 38 billion euros worth of trade between Italy and Africa. And he sees that as a point of departure, an opportunity to try and build those economic relationships and try and help countries.
Well, Josephine, thank you very much for the updates. Josephine McKenna reporting live via Skype from Rome in Italy. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Now, strengthening civil society and promoting democracy in Nigeria. Stay with us.
My name's Carla Babb, and I work the Pentagon beat. That access helps me to do better stories. Every day it's my responsibility to collect all of the defense news. It keeps our VOA viewers informed. I get to travel all across the globe. Anything that's defense related and how to protect and keep people safe, that's where I'll go. So it's never a dull moment at the Pentagon. My name is Carla Babb. This is my beat.
Well, in business news, African entrepreneurs are turning more to crowdfunding, and now everyday investors in the U.S. have a new opportunity, taking it one step beyond. For the details, Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino joins us live from New York. Hi, Jill.
Hey, Vincent. More and more Africans are turning to the new solution of crowdfunding to resolve the old problem of not being able to obtain a loan from a bank, because small businesses have a hard time convincing financial institutions that they can pay back debt. Essentially, it's a form of financing in which entrepreneurs use internet platforms to ask the general public to invest in their businesses. It's already well established in Europe and the U.S., but it does require more understanding and trust in Africa because crowdfunding is still relatively new there.
So what other benefits does crowdfunding offer?
Traditional lenders often lack entrepreneurial expertise, so the crowdfunding platforms can act as advisors with business plans and develop a network for the project in an effort to market and attract new clients and investors. Crowdfunding also has fewer regulatory burdens for small businesses and startups.
Now, typically large institutions and venture capitalists could invest in very directly into startups, but now new rules in the U.S. are making it possible for other fellows, small guys like me, to actually get on the ground floor, right?
That's right. Rather than crowdfunding under the new rules, anyone can risk $2,000 a year or more in exchange for a stake or equity in the company. The company can raise up to $1 million a year this way. The New York Times recently featured a woman who started Zuva, an online marketplace of African fashions that took advantage of the new rules. So she's willing to give up some equity in her company to expand workers' hours and operations, which would ultimately lead to future growth.
Well, Jill, thank you very much for your reporting.
Thank you.
Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino. Well, Nigerian human rights activist Hafsat Abiola has been promoting democracy and helping women in the West African country to participate in the country's governance. Her work is often dangerous. She's made risky trips to areas targeted by Boko Haram extremists, meeting with survivors of terrorist attacks. She's helped organize women to demand action against Boko Haram's campaign against women, which has included kidnapping, slavery, involuntary conversions to Islam, and forced marriages. Hafsat Abiola is the founder and board president of KIND, the Kudirati Initiative for Democracy. She was recently in Washington, D.C. to receive a Global Leadership Award at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. The Nigerian human rights activist is the guest today on One-on-One with Peter Clotey.
Tell me, in promoting democracy in Ogun State and in Nigeria, what has been your work like?
Yeah, Nigerians are very supportive and excited to have a democracy, but in many respects, people don't know how to use democratic systems. So one of the things that my NGO has done in several states in Nigeria is what we call a community scorecard. We take issues that are of concern to people at the local level, and we come to those people and conduct surveys on the services of the state in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in terms of protection of markets and facilitation of markets, and different questions like this. And then we bring the people, a representative sample of the people we surveyed, together with their state and local government, for them to share the results of the survey. So the government will see how the people perceive their performance in terms of education or health, and the government has a chance to respond and explain the challenges they face, and to also hear what the people expect of them.
Well, as they say, if you educate a woman, you educate the nation. How has been the responses of women to participate in the democratic tenets that you want them to embrace?
As the inaugural person in charge of the Millennium Development Goals portfolio, which was the UN covenant, that was a global one. Right. And I was to work on achieving the goals for our state. Now, one of the goals talks about women's empowerment and gender equality. So I worked with the women in the cabinet to look at the question of how can we get women into local government. And what we decided to do was to provide something that I call a sponsorship platform, which was that we were already in government, we were members of cabinet, we were appointed, but because of our position in government, we have authority. And we could talk to the party leaders, party gatekeepers, and with all of them we were saying we need to get women into local government council in Ogun State. So now there are about 300 positions that we were targeting in local government council, and we had about 3 women at that time. We worked and we were able to get 54 women from 3 to 54 in the 2014 election. The next election is in 2017. And now, from that experience that we had, I want to use my NGO for us to replicate it nationwide.
But let's take it up to the north, where the religious undertones play a critical role in how governance is administered in that part. How realistic will be the chances of having women participation, particularly in the north, where, of course, you know, Boko Haram is running riot there despite successes of the military?
I went to northeast Nigeria in 2014, a month after the abduction of the girls in Chibok community, right. Yes. And I went to conduct an assessment. Now, my NGO has trained about 500 women in Borno, which is the part of northeast Nigeria that is hardest hit by Boko Haram. So we have a huge network of women and men also that we can call on, that we can find out what is going on. And so when I went for about a week and did a study of the situation there, I learned that a lot of the signals that there were problems in Borno, women had been seeing it, but they had no access in politics to really make sure that they could raise an alarm, they could be heard, and that the path could be changed in the direction of the government.
Coming back to Ogun State, what are the prospects of a successful governorship, and do you think that would be better for women in that state?
Normally what governors do is they just distribute money. But we don't want to do that, because that is the behavior of people who are depending on the oil wealth. So we take the money from the federal government and then we just distribute, and everybody, so the governor gets his own chunk and then the poor people also get little bits of money. But that doesn't actually help the economy of the state. And to help the economy of the state, we need to invest. People are seeing that the women in Ogun State that are in government are also making a real difference, that we're really trying to support them. So when later on my younger sister or some other woman in my state goes to the local government people and say, will you support me? Will you give me a chance? The people will likely say, we have seen your sisters in cabinet and we've seen how well they've done. And we've seen that, you know, good leaders can make a difference because we have seen our governor. So yes, go forward. And if you don't do well, we will not repeat this chance we've given you, but go and try. So this is what we want to begin to do across in Ogun State and across Nigeria.
Well, Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, how Nollywood's most unexpected star talked her way to fame. We'll be right back.
This is what I want to bring before you are washing. You want to send me away before hearing it.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. In local dialect, she's known as Oyibo Princess, which means white princess. Former British Airways flight attendant Claire Eden got her big break in Nollywood after a friend shared a video of her speaking pidgin on social media. The clip was seen by top Nigerian movie director Lancelot Emerson, who then called her up and offered her a role in his new production ATM, or Authentic Tentative Marriage. Now, the film focuses on a Nigerian man played by popular actor Alex Ikubo, who marries her character Amelia so he can move to Britain. Claire is now a fully fledged celebrity, attending premieres and posing on red carpets, but she still hands out flyers to promote the film, and that is... We still got more next up. Moving to a new city and making friends can be tricky, especially when you don't speak the language fluently. Now, a new website is introducing Syrian refugees to local residents in Berlin to promote friendships and break down cultural barriers. Let's integrate. It works like a normal dating website, but without the romance. Locals and refugees can pick times on pre-arranged meeting spots and simply show up. The idea is to make meeting new people as easy as possible. No preparation is needed. People just need to show up and hopefully have a good conversation, or if the language barrier is too high, a conversation on with hand signs. Let's Integrate was launched on May the 1st, and so far around a dozen meetings have taken place. And that's our show. That's our show today. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords.
Here is a story that has to do with defects or problems with cars.
Listen for the word that means to take back something. Recall.
They had meetings over this defect. They shared complaints over this defect. Yet there was no investigation by the government and no recall by General Motors until 10 years later.
Recall. It is a word that means to ask people officially to return something.
In our story, there were major problems with some General Motors cars. The man says the U.S. government and the car company took too long to issue a recall, so the cars could be fixed.
Now, when you hear the word recall, your American English will be good enough to know what this news word means.